Starring Drew Harrison and Will Abeles.
Welcome back to Academy Award winning, Grammy nominated, Webby considered, My Funny Friends.
Yeah.
I am one of your two hosts, Will Abeles, and with me is the one and only Drew Harrison.
Hey,
Hello, Drew.
buddy. How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah. Well, speaking along the lines of that, I always we got like we dabble in all the different medias, different people in different genres. We had Ali Stewart not too long ago talking about storytelling shows. We've had Jeff Tice recently talking about the graphics and promotion part of things. Today, we have a radio DJ.
No, we don't.
We do.
Wow.
Yeah. So this guy is just absolutely amazing. And I mean, I can't say enough about him. Big part, he always has the comics in Wilmington on to talk about their weekend at Dead Crow, all that good stuff. He is also a comedian himself, so I can't wait to talk about that side of things and just how he got started in radio and all that good stuff. It's Randy Slack. Randy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Of course, Randy. Man. That was actually perfect timing. We're just knocking out the little intro, and then you popped up, and boom, there we go. Look at that.
That was a little too good, so something's about to happen.
I mean, they do say, radio hosts have that perfect timing. Like you got did you work in radio when you had to get the timing right? Like you didn't have this fully automated system where you had to like say your thing right when the music was starting?
Well, I mean, I worked a lot in talk radio when I started. And the thing with talk radio, especially with like when you do sports, is those broadcasts start at a specific time. You know, like you're not just counting, like when I worked for the Reds Radio Network, it wasn't just 700 WLW, the home station we were working for. It was 90 other radio stations. And we had to start exactly when you had to start. So,
gotcha. So
learning how those...
You got your timing down.
I talk about radio as a time business more than anything else, because the show happens at 6 in the morning when I get there, whether I wanted to or not, whether I'm ready or not.
Yeah.
It's 6 o'clock in the morning. And I can't be like, hold on, guys, let's start the show 5 minutes late. Like I have to start at 6. That's just how it works. So it's a time business.
Awesome, man. Well, you are currently the morning guy in Wilmington on Modern Rock 98.7. And then you also switch gears and are on ESPN Wilmington with Slack on Sports, your sports show. So how do you get in that mindset of like switching from morning radio, like I'm getting you through your drive to work, to let's talk about LeBron James and his feelings?
LeBron James has a lot of feelings. We can talk about that at a different time.
He does have a lot of feelings. He's a very emotional man.
He is an all-time great player, an all-time incredible athlete, one of the most annoying human beings on the face of the earth. Just that's the thing is, in sports radio, you're supposed to take one take or the other. Yeah. I can agree. In my mind, LeBron building a school in Akron, helping out his hometown, amazing. Right. But then also saying that he knew Kobe was going to have 81 in that game against Toronto. It's like, shut up, dude. You didn't know. Like
my favorite still is when he's like, man, I was listening to I was listening to Migos like way before they came out, They're like, okay.
Well,
like those dates didn't even match up, bro.
He said Austin Reeves. I knew he was going to be a great player. It's like, of course you did, LeBron, because he's that friend you had in middle school that lied about everything, and you're like, dude, we're your friend. You don't have to just stop.
Yeah.
to your point, the biggest difference is the morning show. It's a lot of music. It's get in, get out. I'm talking for maybe a minute or two. And then to go to sports talk and have to talk for an hour. Sometimes I get, Drew, you come on and, you
Yeah.
help me fill out that hour.
I
But
love
sometimes
anytime you name me.
it's a lot of fun, dude. But sometimes it's just me. Nobody calls. And I
Yeah.
have to just I look and it's like my first break's 15 after and it's 9 and I don't
Yeah.
want to burn through every bit of material I have right now.
Yeah.
So I guess, like I try to read as much as I can and try to bullet point stuff between shows
How do you
just to
get
try
through?
to kind of get in that.
Like, because right now you're flourishing. You
Mm-hmm.
got hockey playoffs, you got
Yeah.
MLB starting, you got NBA
Yeah.
playoffs, you got the I don't know if you talk about soccer much, but Champions League's dwindling
Yeah.
down. But you got so much sports right now. What do you do in a couple weeks where all you got is the rough part of baseball that no one talks about?
Yeah, when it's like June baseball.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you'll try to talk about that kind of stuff. Luckily, in Wilmington, we have some UFC fighters in
Okay,
town,
yep.
so maybe
Brunson,
I'll get like Joe Selecki on. There's a WWE wrestler from Wilmington. I'm trying to get him on the show, and again, that's another thing that
who's
you
from
can kind of
Wilmington?
talk about during the. His name's Miles Bourne. He's on NXT currently.
I didn't know
And
he's
Isn't
from
that the
the
better
Wilmington.
big
That's
thing with
dope.
him,
It's
The
a
better one.
minor
Yeah,
league
you guys.
system. It's like it's better to watch. It's easier to watch
Yeah.
than WWE, but yeah.
Yeah.
the high praise he's getting, a lot of people on the internet, or at least like in the NXT circles, they're calling him the young Randy Orton, and
Oh wow,
that's
that's high praise.
Randy, one of the smoothest workers maybe ever. So if you're
Yeah.
being compared to him at such a young age, that's a big billing to live up to. But again, trying to get him on the show, and also I've never built my show on being strictly a sports show anyway.
I got other
Yeah.
stuff to talk
And if I want to talk about other things, and in reality, like, Pardon My Take is one of the biggest sports podcasts in the world.
Yeah.
How much do they talk about sports? They do, but they also talk about just general life stuff. And
Yeah.
I feel like if you're not talking about normal human everyday things, you're not going to do very well.
You've kind of lost
especially
the
in
plot.
June,
Yeah.
July.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more of, it's a show for guys who like sports. So we'll talk a lot about sports, but even your buddies that you talk sports with a lot, you probably talk about other stuff as
Go on
well.
tangents, be like something about the sports makes you think about, but like, oh, what did you think about this the other day? So,
Yeah,
no, I hear you.
Absolutely.
That's a huge part of this podcast is whenever we have somebody on, they talk about sports, and I don't talk for 60 straight minutes.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, Randy, let's take it back to the beginning, man. Were you a funny kid? Like, were you trying to make the kids in the class laugh, all that good stuff?
I talked a lot in class. I was one of those kids. I tried to be funny, but more than anything, I remember my Spanish class, they put all empty desks around me. I was in my own island because I would be a little disruptive and chatty. So, getting into comedy, getting into radio.
We're putting you on your own island there.
Yeah,
I know
Island.
exactly which kid you were.
Yeah.
Were you the same one? Well,
every couple of teachers, but yeah. I once was
either
choking on a lollipop.
or in an island.
Yeah, I was choking on a lollipop once in my lone island desk. And the teacher hated me so much he just let me keep choking.
like, come on.
Like I was like actually like legitimately choking, and then I realized you could just pull the lollipop out of your throat.
Man, I remember one time this kid stuck a paperclip in an outlet. Like he had a pin, he had it taped to a pin, and he stuck it in the outlet, and it sparked. I mean, science, and it did its thing, and I could not stop laughing. So I'm the one that got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
Like I was always a kid. Well, I wasn't. I just couldn't help myself from laughing, and you try to stop laughing, and that just makes you laugh even harder.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was always a kid that got blamed for. I spent a lot of time in the principal's office for just laughing at things other kids did. Like I'd be like, I'm trying to stop laughing.
We got to prepare for the real world.
Yeah, you're gonna get blamed for this.
But yeah, I tried to be funny, but yeah, I was mainly more than anything else. I just didn't shut up, and
I just kept going.
that was my downfall. Yeah, for
But
sure.
it's a perfect transition into radio.
Yeah, right. Like
It
I
really
wanted
is.
to either be a game show host, a meteorologist.
I can
Then
see
I
you
found
hosting a
out
game show. I like that.
I found radio, and I was like, dude, I got to figure out how to make money doing this. And now I'm doing it. I'm still trying to figure out how to make money.
That's
So
the key.
Yeah, well, that's
we're
the game.
halfway there.
Yeah. When I was in college, Emerson, I went to Emerson College, and they had one of the best college student radios in the country. But we also had a radio, like an internet radio station, and that was supposed to be kind of like
radio.
Yeah, this was like around 2010, and that was supposed to be like the edgy one where like you could curse, you could talk about whatever you wanted. When you were starting out, did you have anything like that where it was like kind of like, was the internet different, or was it all just kind of together at that point?
When I went to radio, when I went to the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, we just had an internet radio station. They kept it pretty generic. We did a lot of mock shows too. And one of the things I loved about the mock shows, and we were in different groups, and my group, there weren't enough people in the rotation, so we had to keep doing shows. So everybody else was doing a show, take a break, listen to the other show, and go back and forth. We just had to keep going. And it was fun to do the same thing over and over, but try to do it differently. And try to be like, okay, yeah, like how else can we get into traffic? How else can we set up our pop culture stories or our news stories? Like that kind of stuff was really fun to just have to think on the fly. And more than anything, like, I mentioned radio is a time business. It's improvisation too. Like when you're live on the air talking, like you just have to, it's one take. So you just have to keep going and keep filling that time. So it was fun. The one thing with college radio, we did an event at the world's largest office party, and they gave us drink tickets. And I had
college kids?
Yeah, college kids. And let's just say I had too many drink tickets. I had used too many drink tickets. Let's just say that.
You were finding drink tickets that didn't exist at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like printing money, baby.
So I put on the headphones just to figure out where we are, so then I can tell the next person who's going to be live on the air, because I'm done. Clearly, I'm using all the drink tickets. And as I put on the headphones, the guy back in the station's like, all right, we're going to go live to the world's largest office party. Who do we got on the line? And I'm just like, oh my God.
Oh no.
And I'm like, Randy. And he goes, how many people are down there? I'm like, man, I don't know, 3,000.
Oh no, dude, there's like a ton of dudes here.
There was a lot of people here, brother. And then they were like, okay. And then he immediately goes back to music, and he's like, can you get somebody else on? So yeah, I don't drink at events anymore. Just to be safe.
At least you knocked that out in college. You weren't like my first job. They had to let me go because I used too many drink tickets. But I feel like we can't pass over this world's largest office party. Like, tell us more about it.
You just said that way too casually.
Yeah.
Well, it was this event for young professionals. It was at a hotel convention center downtown Cincinnati. Yeah. And they just had different people from all over. And for I don't know why they had our school there, but we were there, and we'd cut in every once in a while talking about it and whatever. And yeah, I was too inebriated to really be on the radio that day. I had the self-awareness for it, but it was too late to grab anybody else. Because again, like, we're live, pal. I had to just go with it. So.
Do it live.
We had two. So I mentioned like the internet. We did the internet radio shows at Emerson. Yeah. And I had two, and the second one was so much more fun because it would be my roommate and I, and we would just shit on Emerson every day, and no one listened. So like the only time there was repercussions is like one time our supervisor was like, I don't know if I've ever listened to Will's, and he checked in and just heard me like cursing on. He was like, you can't do that. Like, but the other one we had, it was like a 4 a.m. It was like at 4 a.m. or something.
Jeez.
Okay. And my buddy signed up and was like, do you want to be my co-host? And I was like, yeah, I want to try this out. And then he never showed up. So it would just be me by myself trying to learn how to run the board and it's 4 a.m. So like I know no one's listening to me because it's a college, it's a college radio.
Yeah.
So
If
I would
they're
just
listening at 4 a.m., they're not paying attention.
no. So I would just play comedy albums. I would just play comedy albums because I was like, no one's listening, and I just kind of want to listen to them. I'm also like still drunk from the night before,
gone to sleep yet.
It was like, it was just chaos. It was chaos.
Yeah,
but it was so much fun because it was so different from stand up in that you make the joke, and then you just have to imagine them laughing on the other side.
Yeah.
A
buddy of mine I worked with at DVE, also who went to Emerson, Bill Crawford. He was a stand-up comic and he does radio, and he said he compared it to throwing a snowball in a furnace. He's like, you just put it out there and you're like, I have no idea if that did anything. And that's
I just know I built it and that's it. Yeah.
And I hope it worked.
Well, what's the earliest? Will said his show's at 4 a.m. What's the earliest you went on there? You were on there.
My first paying gig in radio, we were live 24/7 on a country station, B105 in Cincinnati. I would do.
I mean, first, country station in Ohio is fantastic in the first place, but just you doing country is just. Wow.
I'll have you know that B105 is a multiple time CMA and ACM large market station of the year. Shout out to my man Big Dave. The morning show wins awards. The guy who was who taught me a lot about radio, Jesse Tack. He's won an ACM a time or two. So
that's
pretty good there in Cincinnati. But they're live they were live 24/7, and I would do midnight to 6 in the morning, Friday night into Saturday, and you'd do 6 hours, and you would get people for the first hour or two, people that were out at the bars and they're having fun, and then you'd hit like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then it would just get weird, and you'd be the only one on, and like you would get like just.
He's like, I don't think Morgan Wallen did anything wrong. You know what I'm saying, brother?
We had a guy who would call in all the time, and we would always have the same conversation. It was always, "Hey, buddy, how are you?" And I go, "I'm good." He go, "How's your wife and kids?" I'm like, "I'm not married. I don't have kids." And then he would just like, that'd be about it. Well, one time he called in. He's like, "Hey, buddy, how are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm good, just single, no kids." And since he got out of his pattern, he didn't know what to ask, and he just goes, "What are you wearing?" So then I just let him ask his questions from then on out because I didn't want to have to tell him what kind of clothing I had on at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
It took a turn there for sure.
Yeah, sweatpants.
Jeez, Louise. Okay.
Yeah. So midnight overnights. It was terrible, but you got to crack the mic. You got to go on live, and you were doing the Lord's work at those times.
Yeah, really.
Do you have a call-in guest that just really sticks out to you in your memory?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
As far as like on the sport or just in general,
anything.
Yeah.
Pull from
the whole have like an all-time favorite? Yeah.
I had a guy call into Slack on Sports one day, and he's like, "Let me ask you a question."
Oh,
it was this older gentleman.
That's always great.
Yeah.
And he's like, if they didn't have walls out in the outfield, and there was a guy who could just hit the ball as far as he could, and just hit it farther than anybody else, do you think he'd be the best player? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what if he could just throw, and he had the best arm from anybody? And he just kept talking. Like, yeah, of course, if a dude could hit it as far as possible and there were no walls and he was fast and he could run. Essentially, this guy was telling me that Roberto Clemente was the best player of all time.
I was like, he's burying the lead. What's he trying to get to?
An incredible player. But, I couldn't, when you're just taking a call from somebody and the first thing he's just like, if a guy could hit the ball farther than anybody else.
Yeah. Hey, man, you reckon
would he be the best player?
You reckon if someone plays baseball better than anyone ever, he'd be the best player of all time?
That guy was clearly watching The Natural and having a moment. Then called you and was like, "Do you think Hobbs could have gone all the way if he hadn't gotten stabbed or shot by that lady? He really could throw and hit the ball." And you're like, "So that's a fictional character."
There's another guy that calls in a ton, and his name's JP. He's a Duke fan. And sometimes he overstays his welcome, and sometimes he calls twice during the show.
For the record, all Duke fans overstay their welcome.
But he's a great guy. I love him. I love making fun of him. He's a great sport about it. Yeah. But he calls in so much about Duke stuff that when Coach K retired, a local TV station reached out to me to get JP's phone number so they could have him on the TV news.
Did you tell him he was too busy crying from what Carolina did to him?
He's probably a doctor. He's probably like too busy fixing someone's heart.
He actually went. He went and met the TV station. They met outside of a theater in Wilmington, and he shot a little stand up with him and talked about how Coach K was just the absolute best. So it was
that's amazing.
Keyword there.
Love me some JP. Except when I ran into him at a comedy show and he wouldn't leave me alone. I was trying to write down my notes, and it was like, bro, I'm going on in 5 minutes. Can we stop this conversation?
Can we not do this? Yeah. I grew up in Maryland in the 90s and the early 2000s. So that was back like when we could hate Duke as like a Maryland fan.
That was Carolina and Maryland came together to make sure Duke didn't do better than us.
Because I also had a UNC Tar Heels hat. So I had a Maryland hat, I had a UNC Tar Heels hat. And I don't remember who said this, but it was a Maryland player, I believe. And they asked him what was the most terrifying place to play in basketball. And they're like, do you think Duke's hard? And he goes, no, Duke's not hard, because when you look up, you realize it's just a bunch of nerds yelling at you.
Sounds like Grievous Vasquez.
I was like, that's true. They are all in a way nerds. Very, very wealthy nerds.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Randy, what got you? I know we've talked before, just having conversations about your time in Pittsburgh. And you dabbled quite a bit in the comedy community on your time radio there.
Yeah, man, I got it. It was funny when I got the job at DV in Pittsburgh. The first thing Randy Bauman, the host of the show, asked me, he was like, "Who's your favorite stand-up comics?" And I hadn't really thought about it. I watched some, Dave Chappelle and Mitch Hedberg, people like that, but I didn't really get into it.
Yeah.
And once I worked on that show, and just how many comedians went through DVE and would be on the show, like that was one of the first places Bert Kreischer told the Machine story, was on a DVE morning show.
Oh wow!
Like it's a huge bed for stand-up comedians, and I kind of got into a little bit just being around the local guys, being around the national touring people. I wanted to try doing open mics and try to get another vehicle to be funny and to talk to people, and I did it a little bit there. And the open mic scene in Pittsburgh was terrible, because it was like it is everywhere except Wilmington, because you're not doing it at the club. You're doing it at a bar when dudes are trying to watch the Pirates game and nobody's there to see you.
Do you think comedy is just relatively harder in sports cities?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Like I'm sorry, you just saying it made me think about it.
I mean, when you think of the biggest comedy cities, you think places like New York and Chicago, which are enormous sports cities.
Very true.
Those are big. Chicago again, Los Angeles, that's different. I mean, is that even
they don't
a
care.
Comedy town? That's just more.
Los Angeles. I love that Los Angeles has so many teams, and they just do not care. Like they care about the Lakers, and that's about it. But they care about the Lakers games. Yeah. They just care about being seen courtside.
Yeah. They just want to make sure they're right behind a Kardashian. Just for Instagram.
That was the saddest thing I ever saw. Was the Rams Super Bowl parade.
Oh, I don't know if I saw it.
There was like 100 people there.
Everyone's just like, why is there like? 'Cause I guess like, oh yeah, there's traffic, and it's like, yeah, it's LA. There's always traffic.
Yeah.
I remember when the Chargers first had their first games there, and they were playing in that soccer stadium. There was a clip of one of their players, and he's like, 16 road games, because nobody came to Chargers games except fans of the other team. So he was like, we're just playing on the road every week. This is so annoying that no one cares. No one's cheering for us.
Yeah, they should have never left San Diego. They had a great fan base.
Really should.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Well, so Drew, to your question, I think it's not like it's like the cities that they got nothing else but sports, like Philly.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like where it's like it's Eagles Sunday. There is nothing
Do they
else
even?
happening.
I was like, do y'all even do comedy shows in Philly on Sunday?
I couldn't tell you. I honestly don't know if I've ever done one. And I used to do Philly like every other week, and I couldn't tell you if there was a Sunday show or But
Yeah.
I think so I don't think like a big scene, kind of what you were saying, is like New York and Chicago and LA. Like I don't think that would be a
kind
problem.
of transcend the
sure.
You know, they got so much going on that you can have everything.
Because
those cities, like, I mean, I don't know firsthand because I mean, Randy, you spent time there, but like, I feel like Pittsburgh, depending on the importance of the game, kind of shuts down for whatever team is playing.
Yeah, I mean, went from September through January, it's Steelers season, and then it becomes Penguins season. And then, if the Pirates are
Pirates could ever do anything,
I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah, I'm not.
I mean, early '90s, they were electric.
But there are good rooms there, from what I hear. But for the most part, like the open mic scene, and it was the same when I lived in Cincinnati. Not that I really tried to get into the scene there, but like Go Bananas was a cool place for open mics. But I really didn't know anywhere else that went. And Go Bananas was similar to Dead Crow, where it was a comedy club that was doing the open mic. So you were doing, a mic in front of an audience that was semi paying attention to you.
Yeah. They came for comedy. That's
right.
So key.
There was nothing else going on in that room except people practicing jokes.
Yeah,
you were there some of those nights, Randy, at Bombers, where we should have changed the name to Surprise.
The four people there. I had jokes that I hadn't even looked at before. Those were where I would do the Bombers jokes, and then jokes that I thought might be okay. You had to do those at Dead Crow, which I guess that would be the only downside to the old Dead Crow room when it was really packed full of people, was you almost didn't want to do new stuff because you were like, I want to be funny because there's 115 people in here. I don't want to do a new joke that's going to bomb and then be like, damn, all these people saw me and I suck.
Yeah, I used to love seeing that wave over people's face where they realized that. They came through the back door and they're like all full of their new jokes. They're like, I'm going to try something. There's 100 people here.
Yeah, people in the stairwell.
Stuff.
And then you bring your hits and you still bomb and you're like, dude, okay.
If you gave them, there were some nights where you could have read The Great Gatsby and they would have cracked up at you. Like, it was just magical there sometimes.
It's a very good book, Drew.
I mean, the movie's better.
Well, the movies are always bad. That's actually true.
I said the movies are better.
No, the movies are always historically terrible. That's a conversation for a different day.
What are these books you're talking about?
I don't know why, but that's like the only. You could have said any book on the planet, but that's like the one book I know this random fact about.
Well, wasn't that what Kaufman would do? Wouldn't he read The Great Gatsby if the crowd turned against him?
Oh, I don't know.
I thought that was a big thing with if the crowd hated what he was doing, he'd just whip out The Great Gatsby and start reading.
I know Steve Martin towards the end of his stand-up career, when he was like doing like Giant Stadium and like didn't know what to do when they were yelling out his punchlines. One time he went up there and he read the phone book for like 2.5 hours or something.
Oh my gosh.
And he said like people were just losing it. And he was like, what do I have to do to get you to not like me? You know, that's how popular it was. People were just like, genius. I'm on a lot of mushrooms, but genius, you know.
Yeah.
My buddy Bill Crawford, the Emerson guy. I'm just going to refer to him as that again. So Will's like, oh yeah, I like this guy. What Bill would do if a crowd was terrible, he told me he would. He's been doing comedy a while. He would ruin the end of Usual Suspects if the crowd was. If the crowd was just being terrible, he's like, "Hey guys, I just want to say I hate you guys haven't been, you've made this night miserable for me, so I'm gonna make it miserable for you." Kevin Spacey's Kaiser Soze, good night, everybody. I'm Bill Crawford, and he would just walk off stage.
Oh, that would just. If you did that, if you updated that joke and you just did that for like the most like the next Game of Thrones or like whatever it is. And just was like, hey, by the way, Heisenberg's dead, or whatever.
By the way, those dragons.
He was dreaming the whole thing. Anyway, good night.
So what I wanted to ask you about, so with Pittsburgh specifically and like doing the radio there, I imagine that probably tapped into like a ton of that area, like not just Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, but like it probably moved further west, right? Like went into Ohio and all that, or what?
The radio station itself.
Yeah,
I'm
like
sorry.
was that something like when like a comic would come in to plug a show and everything, were they like just focusing on Pittsburgh, or would that actually kind of bleed into like the rest of the Rust Belt and everything?
We would that was mainly for the improv. There would be some shows that might be a little bit out of town as far as
Yeah.
maybe going to Erie potentially.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was generally for just like the Pittsburgh improv shows, or like we ended up doing theater shows as a radio station at the Byam Theater downtown. So like sometimes the theater comics would come in. It was kind of something I wanted to do here in Wilmington, but because of the way shows are promoted now and how agents and management kind of book everybody's tours, it's kind of limited how much you can do with those, with like bringing in an independent theater to bring in a big show. So
Yeah.
Which, by the
Yeah.
way, when Randy does put his promoter hat on, it's fantastic.
thank you. Yeah. We tried, dude. I tried so many. I loved like doing the Dusty Slay show was awesome. Dusty was tremendous. Everybody loved that show. But man, between trying to get that show and trying to get other shows off the ground has just been incredibly difficult. Either
Yeah.
they're booked their tours through Live Nation, or I tried to get Taylor Tomlinson for a show, and her agent was like, "Your 1,500 seat room's too small," and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thanks. We could do two shows in one night if you wanted to," but he was just like, "No."
No,
So
no.
it's
Yeah. And there's also
it's
these
tough.
weird, yeah, and I learned because it was a club I was working with in Richmond, and luckily, not being represented by anybody, I don't have any problem with this. But there was a problem where they told me like the other club in town has, a chain. It's a chain.
Yeah.
And if you headline that club, they don't want you doing another club, not just within like 90 miles. They don't want you doing another club in the entire state, which
Oh my
seems
gosh.
so insane. Because like I can't think of like maybe Rhode Island, but besides that, like every state has so many cities, it's so big. Like how could you justify that being a
Yeah.
problem,
I tried to book somebody once, and because they were doing a show in Fayetteville, North Carolina, they
Yeah.
couldn't do a show in Wilmington. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, who do
Yeah.
you think is either picking between Wilmington or Fayetteville? Like nobody, there's no cross pollination.
Yeah. So how long were you up in Pittsburgh?
I was in Pittsburgh from the end of 2013 through January 2018. So
Okay.
almost 5 years or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I produced the DV morning show. I was on an alt rock station part time. I did a country station again part time. And then I worked for the Steelers Nation radio, which was awful because I'm a Bengals fan. So that was weird too. It was, not only was I doing it on their station, it was at their facility. Like I'm in their building.
So
I
you're
had a
seeing
parking
Steelers
pass.
everything.
Yeah, like I'm walking down the hallway, and like Cam Hayward would see me in the hallway, and I'd wave at him, and he'd wave at me, and it's like I
Like I
hate
feel
these guys.
dirty.
Like,
I feel
Yeah.
dirty.
yeah,
That's funny.
but it was $125 a show, so like you're doing 4 a week on top of your normal salary. It's like, what the hell? You know what?
I guess I'm
Cam
okay.
Hayward's
Yeah.
he's an all right guy.
Yeah. I mean, the Steelers aren't that bad.
Yeah, like, there was a car dealership in Pittsburgh, and in the commercials, the lady had her dogs in the ad. And our morning show was huge. Our morning show, virtually untouchable. Like they fired the morning show host and had to hire him back a week later because of public outcry. Like
Oh,
we
wow.
could
Yeah,
essentially
do no
do whatever
wrong.
we wanted.
You had a Howard
Yeah.
Stern situation on your hands.
Yeah.
And one time, our host was like talking about this. Somebody asked him about the car dealership, and he's like, "Is that lady who sleeps with her dogs?" And just as a joke, and he eventually was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry." He deleted the tweet and he apologized.
I had to go
her,
back.
Yeah, like
Backtrack.
When we had that college radio show, like they did pull us aside once and they were like, "Hey, we're trying to make the internet radio just as popular as our actual radio station. So you guys do have to clean it up and you can't curse anymore." And we were like, "All right, that's fine." And I brought a friend on who was an improv guy, and we just happened to talk about like a friend of ours was a rapper, and we just happened to talk about his show. And I just was like, "Hey, you're at Will." Like, the guy's name was Will, but he was like, "You're at Will's show the other night, right?" And he was like, "That man is talented as fuck." And then the entire thing and we had like meetings, like all this stuff, and it was just, yeah, it was so like I had to like send like a million emails out apologizing. We had 3 listeners, and one was my mom.
Did you send her an apologetic email?
Huh?
Did you send her an apologetic email?
Bev did not. She did not get one.
One of your loyal listeners didn't get an apology
because the listeners weren't complaining. It was the man.
Oh,
and I'll never apologize to the man. So when you were in Pittsburgh, did you ever? And I can't remember. They called the show something else, and I think the venue shut down now. But it was like Ham Bones or something like that.
I never did a show there, but yeah, I do remember that was in Lawrenceville. Yeah, there was Ham Bones. There's still the Arcade Theater.
Arcade, yeah, that was the other one. Yeah,
that's the other one, and then of course, yeah, the Improv. Those are like the main spots now for comedy up there in Pittsburgh.
Because when I did Pittsburgh, it was probably around 2018, 2019. I don't think I've been back since. Not for any particular reason. I enjoyed the show. Actually, didn't the owner get like stabbed or something?
Maybe. Now, when you said that, it sounds familiar.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
I wasn't thinking of a stabbing, but now that you mention it,
yeah.
I think it was something crazy like that. Anyway, but I remember when I was doing Ham Bones, I would go with Alex Grubard. I don't know if you ever came across him, but he was a buddy of mine from New York. He was just like one of those guys who's been doing comedy forever, and he's so silly. But I just remember like that night Sam Morril was in town.
Okay.
And like which comics came to which show was like one of those very humbling moments where you remembered exactly who you were because it wasn't a single comic at our show, and the producer left our show early to go see.
Oh no!
To be fair, he puts on a great show. Very
no, I get it, but it was just one of these hilarious things where he was like, "Hey man, the host is going to take care of you. Alex is up next, and you're doing 45. I'm going to go see Sam Morril at the Improv." And I was like, "Thanks, just pay us. That's all I care
Can
about."
You leave the money?
But that was one of my Pittsburgh experiences. Yeah. That and the stabbing. I was
at that and the stabbing.
We would do some small shows at Club Cafe down on the south side. That was more music or comedy, but we did some little shows there. It was a nice little room. The only thing, the bar placement, and sometimes if the room was packed, you got people right up against the bar, so that leads to a lot of chatter, which can be difficult when there's a comedy show going on.
It sounds like a venue with an identity crisis. Club Cafe, what are you? What are you doing?
Where are you? Yeah,
what's going on here?
They're just hoping for people to do this.
What was your favorite run-in with like a comedic guest when you were doing?
This was the all-time easy is Bert Kreischer would come in several different times on the show. I have a lot of great moments with him. One of them, he was shirtless singing "Higher" by Creed, and he would come in. Dude, he would come in at 7:00 in the morning. And like the day before, they would send me out to get a bottle of Tito's because it was like he's going to drink Tito's and soda at 7 a.m.
Can I have a Tito's and vodka, please?
And he would take his shirt off. Like that's not like just a gimmick for television. Like he was doing that on the radio. But my favorite all time, we were in our old studio and we had Bert Kreischer in. And George Takei from Star Trek, he was doing a thing at the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra where they were going to do like sci-fi music, and he was going to guest conduct. Well, he was coming in studio, and he's with his husband. They get off the elevator, and Bert's shirtless in studio. And we have, a guy and his husband coming in, and I go, George, I just want to let you know, there is a guy who's shirtless in studio. I didn't want him to think like we were trying to play some, homophobic joke on him or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just letting him know, like, this is just what this guy does.
Hey, Kreischer's here. Shirt. He doesn't wear a shirt.
And George is like, can I ask you a question? is he the kind of man who can pull that off? And I'm like, George, you're just going to have to figure that one out for yourself. And we open the door, and sure enough, George comes in. Bert stands up, and he's like, oh, my God, this is happening. And George just stands there in the doorway, does his classic, oh, my. And then they did the little interview, and it was a lot of fun. But, yeah, that was probably, as far as comics go, hanging out with Bert the couple of times he was there. Was really cool. And I really appreciate, like, he did the arena downtown recently. And when he did the arena, he had Randy Bauman, the host of the DV Morning Show, intro the show. Like, for him to be that big now,
cool.
and for him to still be like, if it wasn't for Randy Bauman, DV helping get me so big in the city and helping me get my chops to do radio and promote and everything, like, for him to remember that kind of stuff really says a lot, I think, a lot about the kind of guy he is. So
yeah, he has to be one of the only comics that, like, I have never heard anything but good things about.
Yeah,
like,
which is
across
crazy.
the board. Yeah, because he gives us this persona of, like, oh, he could easily be a nightmare, right?
Sure.
But
the fact that he truly tries his hardest not to be a nightmare makes him.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm not a big fan of his stand up, but as a person, love him to death. Like, I think I watch his YouTube shows more than I would watch his stand up.
Yeah, and I love his relationship with Tom Segura. Like, it's just such a perfect balance of just like, let's. It's not like Drew and I, because but there is, like, a little bit of that where
the yin and the yang.
Will, seriously, please just put your shirt on and sit down.
I do appreciate that I'm Segura in this relationship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you did the Pittsburgh thing, and then what you did, was that when you came to Wilmington?
Yeah, I was, when I was in Pittsburgh, I did Cincinnati first, and then I did Pittsburgh, and I wanted to do my own show. Like, I wanted to do my own full-time show, and I wasn't going to get that in Pittsburgh. And I applied literally all over the country. Like, I had interviews with a station in Buffalo. I did an interview with a guy on the phone in Fargo, North Dakota. I talked to a guy in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I talked to people in Tampa. I talked to people. I was literally just, like, wherever I had to go, like, I wanted to go. I wanted to know if I could do it. And it was like, if I did it and I sucked, then it's like, well, at least I knew. But I wanted to see. And then eventually Laura Lee at Modern Rock 98.7, she liked my stuff. They flew me down for the interview. When they flew me down that day, that was the first time I went to Dead Crow. And I had heard about Dead Crow from some of the Pittsburgh comics I knew, Alex DePula, John Dick Winters. They would come down here, and they did comedy in Wilmington. And so when I was down, it was a Thursday night. And I go to the open mic, and it's packed, and it was like, this is so cool. And, I wanted to bring that DV and how DV has a relationship with the local comedy scene, the national comedy scene, and kind of try to bring as much as I could of that to my show and to Wilmington. So that's what I've been trying to do now for the last 5 years.
Well, that's awesome. You already had that ingrained, wanting comedy in your show to, like, come together. Because, I mean, essentially, at its bare bones, that's what a morning show is. As close to a sitcom as you can get on the radio.
And again, like, I want my show to be funny. I want it to be light. And if you bring in comedians and they can help you do that with the show and bring in different voices on the show, like, you're helping them out, because hopefully you're helping them sell tickets because they're funny on the radio, so the people want to go see them. And then they're helping me do a better show when it's like, Greg, I'm interviewing Greg Warren tomorrow. He's got an Amazon special coming out, so he's going to come on the show, or whoever's at Dead Crow on the weekend, or, like, if Steve Melia or Ellie Coleman or Julia Desmond or whoever would come into studio, or Drew. That stuff was fun to bring in people from all different levels of comedy on the show. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I know, minus me, because I know it's who you're going to say, but have you had a favorite guest since you've been doing it in Wilmington?
Oh, nice one.
A favorite, man. A favorite. The one guy, I think I've only maybe had him on the show once, but I could talk to Wills Maxwell probably just constantly all
So
day, every day.
conversational. God, man. What a great person. Shout out to Wills, man. Love that guy.
He's such a cool guy. As far as like maybe a touring comic or whatever goes, the one guy he and I really connected, Ben Roy. He came on live.
You guys love him down in Wilmington.
I bet he loves Wilmington.
He was super fun on the radio, and he was a really good dude. I really enjoyed having him on the show for sure.
I met that dude the night he was the last comic at Nut Street. He was the last headliner to play Nut Street, and it's when he's sober. So after the show, we said our goodbye to Nut Street as only Wilmingtonians can.
Sure.
Got obliterated. So he was there and he was just hanging out for a little bit. He was just like, "You guys are maniacs. This is entertaining." Yeah. He's like, "I don't partake, but they, whatever." And then
congratulations.
He came back to Dead Crow a couple of years after that and gave me the biggest bear hug ever. I was like, this dude ain't gonna remember me like at all, and it was great. And he actually, me and Cam Smith were talking about it. Cameron is a brilliant comedian, filmmaker, tends to upset some audiences from time to time. So Timmy would keep him on a little bit of a leash on the weekends to be like, "Hey, man." Like, I remember one time he came to me and him were on the same weekend, and Timmy came to him and said, "You get one F word. Pick which show you use it." And I thought that was brilliant because then it put him in his own head, and he's like, "Well, when am I going to use it? This is fantastic."
When am I going to say it? Yeah.
And he cleaned it up because of it. But Timmy was keeping him on a leash for Ben Roy because Ben was get bigger name by then. The TV show was out. People were the shows were sold out, and it was. I forgot who. I think it was Jack Nelson was hosting, and then it was Cameron, and then it was me, and then Ben.
That's Roy. A wild show. That's a wild show right there.
But it worked. Cameron kept it in check, and the last Saturday show, Ben came to Cameron and was like, "I heard they're keeping you on a leash. This show, do whatever you want."
Oh my God, I love that.
Oh man.
So I heard him say that. So I turned to look at Cameron and go, "Well, I'm going before you then." I was like, "You're leading right up to Ben. Like, if Ben sets you free, he can be there for it." So I go before him. Cameron does his thing. Of course, the audience is just like, "What happened?" So Ben spent the first 5 minutes of his set with his arm just on the wall, like,
amazing.
And it was just great. He played it up so well and got him back, and just Cameron was cracking up in the back at watching Ben's reaction to what he had just done. So it was just Ben's
to Ben's own fault.
But he wanted it. He played it up masterfully. Played into it, and that jump started his set. Like, he didn't even have to get into it. It was great.
See, and that's what I love about Wilmington, and I'm saying this with kindness, is that there is a shirt that should be handed out to any visiting comic that says, "I survived Wilmington." And I mean that, and just everyone is so friendly. The drinking culture is insane. The comics are all insane. And it is a blast. It is just a blast. And if you can get through it, you're and now you're part of the family. You know
what's weird about Wilmington comedy is, and I don't know if it was really like this, because I only started really doing weekends at the new club. The Friday early show at Dead Crow is just dead.
We had trouble the second show the last weekend I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I've done different weekends, and one of the first weekends I was hosting, the 7 o'clock, I'd done sound a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And the first weekend I hosted, it was just it was dead. And the two other comics were like, "Man, is this always like this?" I go, "No, I promise the late Friday show and the Saturday shows are going to be fine." And they were. The Saturday shows, the 7, 9:30, killed it. But for some reason, that Friday 7, it feels like every time I'm there, it's 10 people and they just don't care. And I'm like, why did you come here? Like, folks, if you're listening to this and you're watching this, if you go to a comedy show, people are going to tell jokes and laugh. If you don't like them, by all means, don't laugh. But if they're doing a good job, don't just look at them and be like, this guy's doing a good job. Yeah, vocalize this, please, because that's one of the worst feelings is just sitting there and having people look at you like, yeah, oh yeah, no, I agree, yeah, that's,
yeah. You said a thing, yeah.
I love
yeah.
I do feel like Fridays are across the board tougher, just because it is the end of the work week.
Late show for me though, Late show Fridays usually suck for me, and
it's just a weird.
Randy, when that new Dead Crow opened, not the new one, but the semi new one, the one on the other side of Nut Street, when it opened, it was a dice roll. You knew 3 shows were going to be out of this world, and 1 show was going to be But when we first started, you didn't know which one that was going to be.
Ooh, I like that. That's pretty fun.
Like each weekend, it would change. And it would always blow your mind when it was like the early show Saturday. I'm like, why are y'all upset? It's Saturday.
Yeah.
What is going on? So it was always the random, you pull the lever and be like, what show's going to suck this weekend?
When I featured for John Hastings back in January, we had a lady come on stage during the late Saturday show. This lady came on. He ended up screaming at her. She came up there. And then like one of the door guy came up and he wasn't really trying to grab her because it's a lady. And then Amy had to come up there and kind of fend it off. And it was
you don't want to get Amy on the case.
I'm upstairs and then all of a sudden I'm kind of half watching it on the screen. And then I see John just start pointing and screaming. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I can hear them underneath us in the main bar area. You can hear this lady screaming. And my favorite part about it was, as she's leaving, some guy has his phone out and he's like videoing her having this, he's like, oh, this is my big viral moment. She hits this dude in the face with a beer bottle on her way out, just smashes him. And he ended up not pressing charges, but it was just kind of funny that it was like, you got what you got, buddy, you wanted to film an outburst. Well, you became part of the show.
That's why Pride didn't press charges, because he got like 1 million views on that video.
Oh my God.
He got annihilated. That was pretty fun.
Beer bottle to the face. Like that's a story that when you hear about, you're like, I got to see that at least once in my life.
I unfortunately have hit someone with a beer bottle before, so it's not.
Oh my goodness.
It's not fun.
Yeah, you think I'm the crazy one?
Immediate regret.
Smashing beer bottles at people's faces. I do love Wilmington. Drew is just such a
different person.
Like that, Nashville's like Drew is just like he's Uncle Drew. He's respected. He's calm. He shows up. He does the job. Wilmington Drew is just like, what'd you say, buddy? And just smashes a beer bottle in someone's head.
Well, that's what's great is I still had that reputation in Wilmington, but the people that would come out drinking with me on those Thursday nights would be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, so this is Drew. Oh, okay. Yeah.
See, I never saw that side of you either. Yeah. Every time you're in town, you're doing, pretty clean comedy. You're laid back.
I quit drinking because of Wilmington Drew.
All that stuff. So, yeah.
I want to be that version of myself,
I have other people that, you see do all the wild stuff. So that's always fun.
Well, let's talk real quick about the shows you produce in Wilmington. Like I said, you have put on the producer hat. How's the Bills Front Porch show been going?
The Bill shows are great. I do those monthly. Last month we had Paul Bays that came in and Jordan Scott Huggins close out the show. Those are fun. I love doing those shows, and I like that. I mean, I feel like they're pretty good. I feel like the quality of the comedy people get at those.
The pictures look like the people are having a good time,
Yeah, and I like that, we bring in, because of the radio station, I feel like I'm bringing in a different audience that goes to Dead Crow. So, And that was the whole point of it is we had so many fun people in town. We have so many good people in the region that do comedy that I want people to see them and, kind of show them off a little bit to a different audience. So then if they do go to Dead Crow, then they think, oh man, I saw that guy at Bill's and now here he is.
That's my favorite, man, is when audience members come up to you like, man, I saw you at so and so a couple years ago, man. It was good to see you again. Like that always just if you're an audience member, go up to the comic after a show and tell them you saw him before and you loved it. It'll make
never tell a comic, even if it's true, never tell them that they were your favorite comic or they were funnier than the other guys. Because more likely,
that's a good one. No, I like that. When you're standing next to someone, they go, "You're my favorite." No,
I feel like if I'm hosting a Dead Crow or something, and it's like, "Oh, you're the funniest one." It's like, dude, like the other guy's touring nationally.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong. We love hearing it, but it puts us in an awkward spot.
Yeah.
Everyone like, I don't believe
you, dude. I don't believe you. Like it's like, no, you know me from the radio, so you're being nice. Yeah. And that's why I never entered Port City's top comic, because in my head, if I won, it's only because people recognize me from the radio. So I don't want to enter it because of that. And then if I lose, I'm just going to be furious. So it's either I'm furious or I won it under false pretenses. So it's a lose-lose situation for me.
You mean this guy right here?
Huh? No, that is.
Don't let an out-of-towner win.
I've never asked Drew about any of the things behind him. So this is a first. Oh my God, that is what that is. That's a great trophy.
Right?
Wow. Drew, why are you not just holding that every time we do an episode with anyone from North Carolina?
Well, because it says 2016 on it. It's one of those accolades that every time they would use it in Wilmington, it got worse and worse as the years went on. Like that last year I was in Wilmington, they'd be like, it'd be 2019, and be like, this next comic won the best contest in the city.
Yeah,
3 years ago. Give it up for it.
Yeah. It's like being voted the third best comic in Nashville 2 years ago.
Yeah. That'd be like them still bringing you up to that, you know?
Yeah.
And not trying to be funny about it.
Yeah. They're just like,
and then I remember Blair, Aunt Blair, she brought me up one time and even dropped a year on me. So it sounded even worse. She was like 2015. I was like, oh.
Blair Postman did that to you? She probably did it on purpose.
Yeah, she did.
She definitely did it on purpose. She was like, he won in 2003.
Yeah.
The only award I've ever won in my adult life, I was 2010 Western Hills Best Buy Rookie of the Year. I was a holiday temp. I was a holiday temp, and they kept me on through the holidays because I did such a good job. So that was the only.
I could have said that in your intro, man. Why didn't you tell us that?
Yeah, the temp.
It was 2010, dude.
That's fair.
We didn't even have 4K TVs to sell back then, and it was pretty.
There's a subreddit.
Bare bones.
There's a subreddit with temps talking about you. Like, have you heard about this legend?
The legend. His last name was Slack, but he was far from it.
Yeah. I didn't even have a name tag, dude. They gave me I had somebody else's name tag. I was Jamie and home specialist. I didn't even sell washer and dryers. I sold computers. And they finally, after they kept me on after the holidays, they gave me the Randy Computers name tag. But on my last day, I wore my Jamie name tag one more time. I was like, I'm going to break out.
Like the legend that you are.
Yeah, nobody got it at that point because turnover at retail stores is pretty quick.
Yeah,
but for me, it was me and like one other dude. It was like, oh hell yeah, he's Jamie again. Nice. Yeah. So that was fun.
When I was in high school, I worked at a movie theater. It was like an independently owned movie theater, and all my friends from high school, like my closest friends, we all worked there together. But I got hired last, and my friend tore his ACL playing soccer, and at that time, he and I looked really similar. And the GM just like did not get to know any of the employees, right? So like basically he tears his ACL, he's done working, and then I got hired. And so she thought my name was Matt for the first like month that I worked there. And she just would like, and I was just slacking off. I was getting everything wrong. And she would just be like, Matt Hunger, because Matt
Like, yeah, fire that guy.
Yeah, and it wasn't until like a month in, she called me Matt in front of the entire staff, and someone was like, "You know his name's Will, right?" And she's like, "I've been
Don't mess this
Matt
up
for
me.
you're not Matt," and I was like, I don't know.
I don't know what to say here.
I would text Matt during the day. I was like, "Hey, she's yelling at me again, thinking I'm you," and he's like, "Dude, I want this job back when I'm like healed." Like, you're ruining this for me, man.
Yeah.
I got a long career in movie theaters ahead of me, dude. You can't ruin
do
this.
too.
And I actually low key did have a long career in movie theaters.
Yeah. Already, one last thing I wanted to ask you, man, because it's funny to hear comics like, "Oh, I got radio at 6 a.m, but you're like secretly, they love it, because it means they're getting promoted and they're out there. But do you think now in 2023 that radio still has like a reach with like comics that are coming through town and promoting shows, and do you still see correlations? Like out from a promoter standpoint, do you ever plug your shows on the radio and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, the Slack stand-up show that we do at Bill's, those are set up through the radio station.
Okay, so and you get to just plug them all day. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like when we did them, I haven't really talked to Donnie about it, but we used to do it at Skytown Brewery when they were still around. And the three largest, highest-grossing days they had as a business were 3 of my show days. So
that's nice.
For me, it was awesome to know that we were bringing in a crowd for them that weren't just there to see comedy and not spending any money. They were coming, they were buying food, they were
the food was
beer.
Fantastic.
And that was awesome. Like I love that part of it. I do think it depends on the city. A lot of cities don't have a lot of local morning shows, and I think if you have one and you have one that people are into the show, people know the show. And if the Randy Bauman morning show, like the DV Comedy Fest he would run, like they would bring in Amy Schumer before she blew up. They brought in Tom Segura once. They had Jim Norton. They've had, Bert. They've had tons of big time people and people that were blowing up, Nikki Glazer, tons of different, levels of comedians. And when those shows tell you, hey, this guy's funny or this lady's funny, go see her at the Pittsburgh Improv, 412-562-5233. I think that was a phone number. He just said it so many times I've had it in my head. But like it was, if he told you and you liked that show and you trusted that guy, like you believed him. And, like we would definitely, it was so cool to me how comics love, and I know I'm just talking, it's basically just, this title of this show is Randy talks about how awesome DVE was. But like there would be people that would come in that had sold out the weekend and they would come on the show anyway, just because it was fun.
Yeah.
To me,
that's awesome.
Told you, like it was like, oh, we just want to do it. We don't need to.
Yeah, it's not a chore at that point. It's not something you got to do for the business. It's like, no, I want to. This is why I got into this.
Yeah, I've done a few radio spots like as a comedian.
I can't wait. I love it. Man.
It is. It's like the pressure's off you. All you have to do is show up and be yourself, right?
Yeah,
and just not get into an altercation. You know what I mean? But like, it's so easy. It's so much fun. It's light. Yeah.
And as a radio host, for any comics out there listening to this, doing a radio or whatever, just be funny. I know that sounds dumb, but the radio guy wants to make your show good. He wants to sell your tickets. He wants to be like, hey, so is this your first time in? Hey, I read your bio. You're from Minnesota, coming down here to the South. A lot different down here. If you've got something funny about being in the South, if you've got a joke about whatever, if you want to shoehorn a joke into anything, do it. Because it's nice to just be like, the host can laugh at your joke. You tell your joke, the host laughs at it, and then the host is like, oh man, catch Drew Harrison, Dead Crow Comedy, deadcrowcomedy.com, 2 shows tonight, 2 shows tomorrow. Yeah, it's an easy transition. So just tell jokes.
And it's so fun to put a little local touch on it. Like last time I was on Slack on Sports, we were talking about, I do that top 5 show on YouTube, and we did top 5 things to eat in Wilmington, like bringing that local flavor to it. Because people love to hear it. Like, how much pride did we take as being from Wilmington when Nate Bargatze did the the Wilmington joke.
yeah. The Serpentarium.
The Serpentarium. Like we lost
Like,
our
you had to
minds.
show that to me when I got
that.
there. Like that, like that was such a cool moment. Yeah.
So if you can put that little local sprinkle on it.
Shot right there. That's the theme. Everyone's getting shot and stabbed. If we in any way, the three of us ever really come by you, there is a chance if you're a owner of some type of venue, you will be shot or stabbed.
I remember Roy Wood Jr. off the air was like asking us questions about like different stores and restaurants, like chains in Pittsburgh, because then he knew when he got on stage later and he referenced, instead of saying grocery store, he'd say Giant Eagle, and then it's like, oh, it was Giant Eagle, and like that's kind of stuff. It's the little stuff that people get into, man.
Want to feel a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool, man. Randy, where can people find you and the shows you put on, and where also can they listen to your radio stuff?
You can, if you download the Sunrise Radio app, you can do that and listen. You won't do that, so that's fine. ModernRock987.com is listen online if you want to. I'm Slackamania on Instagram for all my comedy stuff. RSci37 on Twitter if you want to hear me just be a self-loathing Bengals fan. I'm not paying for the blue check mark. I refuse to. Here's the thing, real quick.
Yeah, I want to hear a take on this. Yeah,
I love anytime Randy's like, "Here's the thing." I'm all ears. Here we go.
Yeah.
I've been a member of the media since 2010. Okay, I've been in media since 2010, and I've deserved to get a blue check mark. Okay, because I've been a quote unquote semi-public figure. I work in media. I should have had the blue check mark. I've followed Twitter Verified. I've applied for it before. I always would get shut down. And now here we are. I've been doing morning radio in Wilmington for 5 years, and now anybody can get it. Well, I can't get it based off the merits of the things that I do and me being who I am in town, a public figure. I go to the Dollar General and I can hear my voice over the intercom because they're listening to Modern Rock 98.7. Yeah. I can't get a blue check mark, but now anybody can pay for it. Like now it's like, Elon, you're never getting my money.
Right. So that's like the thing. Okay, like Twitter, right? Yeah, exactly. Like you can just do it, right?
Yeah.
There's no way these companies are desperate for cash to a point that they need my $15 a month to get a blue check mark.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, man. The thing is,
maybe they are.
Instagram's doing it now. If Elon must have been doing well enough that the people over at Meta were like, "Yo, we got to get on this blue checkmark train." So,
I meant they charge on Meta anyway for shutting down the Reels program. It's pissing me off, Facebook. Control, guys. Yeah, but for the record,
I deserve a real blue check mark.
Wilmington,
you know what? That's what we're gonna
that pays attention to their morning show hosts. So it's not like you're in a market that doesn't care.
Yeah, I'm not in Raleigh.
Mr. Nominated for Radio Personality of the Year every year.
The My Funny Friends podcast is going to put a festival together to get you that check mark. It's going to be a free Randy's check mark festival. It's going to be at the pub. What's the
Poorhouse
called? The Poorhouse. It's going to be at the Poorhouse.
Yeah.
There's going to be 30 people. We'll pack it in. We're gonna get that check mark.
We'll class it up. We'll do it in the back room over at Eagles Dare at Joe's new spot.
There we go. Oh, that is a nice
It's a nice spot.
You can't do that. I tried to do one local reference. I barely knew it. And then you guys just collectively were like, actually, there's a better spot to go do this.
Well, it's the same guy.
I gave you the tour, man. You know these places, Will.
Drew, how much were we drinking?
I don't know what you're talking
about. That was I do remember getting on stage.
Yeah.
But God, that was a weekend, man.
Yeah. Well, Randy, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Listen to Randy when you can. Check out his Twitter. Get him verified, people. Write letters to your congressman. It's got to happen.
Yes.
But more importantly, if you're in the area, always check out his shows at Bill's. Fantastic. And shout out to Project Nerd for having us and not getting rid of us yet. So hit that subscribe button. Check out all their good content. And we will see you next time.
My friends now. My funny friends. My funny friends. My funky friends now.
Did Project Nerd make that?